some stuff that's happening down in Amelia Island with the Atlantic Coast Conference has been happening today. All the schools, the athletic directors, Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the Athletic Coast Conference, they're meeting, they're discussing the future of the league, revenue distributions, all kinds of stuff. But you saw something earlier today about the conference and people trying to get out of the grant of rights deal.
So all 14 full members of the ACC, we know that Notre Dame is not a full member because they're independent for football. A subset of those 14 teams, half of them, 7 of those have been meeting. They're going to call them and referring to themselves as the Magnificent Seven.
Okay.
This is according to Brett McMurphy on Twitter. All right, so these schools have met in the past several months with lawyers to examine the grant of rights to determine how unbreakable it is. Of course, that deal runs through 2036. All of those ACC teams are locked in until 2036, which includes their deal with ESPN.
Okay, so the grant of rights, for those who don't know, may not understand what the grant of rights is. The grant of rights is your media rights as a school. So, for example, right down the road here, NC State, Carolina, Duke, all right? Their media rights in terms of whatever they make from television revenue, all right? In this case, it's the ACC Network, ESPN, all of that. That money comes from the ACC, right, and gets distributed to all the schools. If they leave to go to another school through the year 26 or the
2036,
through the 2036 school year, whatever money you make, if you go to another conference, let's say, for example, North Carolina goes to the Big Ten. If they get that money from the Big Ten, they have to give it directly to the Atlantic Coast Conference through the year 2036.
Yep.
So guess what? North Carolina or any other school that leaves to another conference will get $0. Hence why all these schools are locked in. My guess is, Chris, that these schools are looking to try and find a loophole to get out of the grant of rights because they can go back to ESPN, Disney, and say, hey, look, we know a way to get out of this. So if you want to hold the ship together, you better start renegotiating with us. Otherwise, we're going to start finding new places.
So before we get there, let's talk about the teams. I just talked about in general what was going on.
Yeah.
Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. These are the Magnificent Seven schools that are meeting, that are looking to figure out how they can get out of the grant of rights. So there are 3 options for them if they are able to get out the grant of rights. You mentioned one, right? Let's see how we can renegotiate with ESPN to get more money. I'm not sure if that's going to be able to happen. That's probably the best outcome for the ACC
or maybe,
as a whole, but I don't know how if that'll be able to happen.
Or maybe allowing themselves to open up to go and maybe bring some stuff to CBS or NBC or Fox potentially.
That will be something, and that's what the Big Ten did.
Yeah,
they're opening it up and they diversified their TV partners. So that is one. Another could be just leave the ACC.
Okay, and go where?
SEC, Big Ten. They're looking to expand.
From my experience, Chris, if you want to swipe right on somebody, they got to swipe right back on you.
You don't think that the SEC would want to have Clemson, Florida State, Miami? Big Ten wouldn't want to have North Carolina?
Yeah.
Bring in NC State while you're at it?
Do you really want Virginia Tech?
They could. And then the other option could be create their own league.
Okay, that's
basically dissolve what is known as the ACC and create something else that with the same members, but where the members have a little bit more power to go out there and negotiate and get their own money.
Okay, well, there's a lot of challenges that come with that because if you want to try and go out there and get your own money, you got to find another network that's willing to work with you. And, okay, is the money going to be worth more than what you're currently making right now?
Here's the thing. For ESPN, there's a lot that ESPN has to think about, right? They have money that they're doling out to the NFL, to the NHL, to the NBA, to MLB. They also have to think about when they have to re-up with UFC pretty soon. Yeah. UFC may include the WWE because now that is
part of Endeavor,
merged in one company, you may have to include that. So ESPN is probably looking at it like, no, we've got this set through 2036. We're good. But if they're trying to figure out loopholes and ways around it, ESPN may not have the money based off of where they're at right now with all the major organizations I just named. along with trying to give more money to other organizations. We've seen over the last 8 years how many rounds of layoffs ESPN's had to do because of all the money they are doling out. As a matter of fact, there's been rumors that maybe even ABC is looking to part ways potentially.
Yeah, Disney. Yeah.
There's rumors about it. So that's something that's going to be very interesting to see. But the main thing that they're holding on to that anybody would want, let's be real, is Duke versus North Carolina.
Yeah.
And me and you brought this up when we talked on Culture State Saturday a couple months ago. Why was Duke versus North Carolina, two unranked teams, still the marquee matchup that particular Saturday at the end of the season? For College Game Day.
Because it's Duke Carolina.
Because Kansas versus Texas is not going to get the same amount of eyes.
No.
Even if they are both ranked.
Yeah, even both top 10.
And so imagine if the Big Ten had that. Imagine if the SEC had that. Well, ESPN still has that.
Well, yeah.
So that's good for them.
For them.
But if the Big Ten ends up getting it, that's not good for the ESPN.
If I'm Big Ten, I get Duke and Carolina, then I'm putting that game on Fox, on network, over the air, and I'm having Gus Johnson on the call. That's ratings boost right there. Again, in terms of regular season college basketball ratings, Duke versus Carolina still drawing the highest numbers, or they're up there in the top 3.
Absolutely.
Those two games.
Absolutely.
So, yes, these are a lot of things, but this is all, again, my opinion is, I've just 100% my opinion. My guess is that they're going to be able to present this to the ACC and ESPN and say, hey, look, we have found if they find a way, if they find a loophole,
it's considered to be airtight right now.
That no one's been able to find it for the last several years. All right, and apparently they've been combing through this thing for months. Right, if they're able to find a loophole to get out, my guess is it's a tactic for them to negotiate with ESPN or say, hey, look, either allow us to also bring in other properties to gain money from them, or we're going to try and break out of our deal, and then we can go with CBS, Fox, NBC, or whomever else.
Here's my question. We named Clemson, Florida State, Miami, UNC, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Who is the glaring omission there?
Duke.
Why isn't Duke a part of this?
Great question.
Could Duke potentially, with men's basketball, go independent like Notre Dame has gone with football?
Ooh.
Do they have the name and the cachet and the ability to carry their own deal? Or are they just waiting to see what Carolina does and we might follow that?
Yeah.
Either one could work. But Duke doesn't feel like the type of university to just wait and see what Carolina does, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, they're not going to sit by and react.
It kind of makes me wonder like what that will be. That's just me putting it out there. I don't know. We don't know anything. This is just we're speculating at this moment. But this is what's happening right now. The Magnificent Seven: Clemson, Florida State, Miami, UNC, NC State, Virginia, Virginia Tech have been meeting over the last several months, and they're examining ways to get out of the ACC grant of rights, which runs through 2036.
Wild time. It's changing right before our eyes, and we don't know what that change is eventually going to look like, or honestly, if it's ever going to end.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that always stays the same, Chris, is constant change.
Well, along with this Sports Illustrated article, they're talking about other conferences expanding. The talk was that for the Big 12, they're looking to raid the Pac-12, and that Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado are potentially on their wish list. If that happens, the Pac-12 is absolutely done.
Well, I look at this from a fan perspective. Is my favorite football team still lining up on Saturdays? Do I still get to tailgate at games? What does it matter what conference you're in? That's the way I look at it. Now there's whole things like how competitive can my team be? We'll get into this a little bit later on, but I know for a lot of fans do I still get to go if I'm an NC State fan, do I still get to go to Carter Finley on Saturdays in the fall and tailgate and watch football?
So it will matter traditionally because right now HBCU conferences are being broken up right now, and there's a lot of people in HBCU who are HBCU alums who are hating it. Right now you don't get the normal A&T versus Savannah State for homecoming. Now you might get A&T versus Delaware. That is very different, and that is a different feel.
Shout outs to the Blue Hens.
That's a very different feel.